This is Professional Life Crisis. I'm your host, Amanda. And by now, I'm a damn near professional at having a life crisis. This podcast is here to help you get through those messy, uncertain times riddled with ramen noodles and self-doubt. If you're an ambitious, curious young professional trying to pave your way in the world, it's not as scary as I once thought it was. But I really wish I'd had someone to tell me that. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Professional Life Crisis. This has been a crazy couple of weeks for me. I have been in the middle of a cross-country move with my partner who just made the move from Arizona to New York. And so I apologize that this episode is coming at you a day late. I was almost all scheduled up to have enough episodes for when we got back. But it was really nice to spend the time and to be present during that experience. And I'm glad to be back. Now that it's the beginning of April, I realize that it's been 6 months since I transitioned from working for my past startup to becoming self-employed. So I thought today we could talk a little bit about how it's going, kind of as a bit of a diary for myself, and maybe it'll help others who are considering making the leap from their full-time job to some form of self-employment. The backstory on this is I've always known that I wanted to be some form of an entrepreneur. I thought I probably wanted to start my own product company. I had so many ideas over the years about different problems that I wanted to solve. But I realized that I had a pretty narrow view of what a successful entrepreneur looks like. I thought about having a, unicorn startup or a patented product. And those were the only two viable options to becoming an entrepreneur. But I've since realized that there are so many different ways that work can look like when you're self-employed. And for me now, it's running my marketing consultancy and doing this podcast. Two things that I definitely hadn't planned to do on my entrepreneurial journey, but they're opening up some completely new and very viable doors for me to be self-employed. And for that, I am very, very grateful. I'm not going to lie, though, it's definitely been an emotional roller coaster. As you may know, I didn't go into this decision voluntarily. I got laid off from my startup job back in October, and the company has since dissolved. So it's not like I woke up one day and said, okay, this is it. I'm ready to be self-employed. It kind of just happened. But I'm glad that it did, because I'm not sure when I would have had the courage to make that decision on my own. It's like I was standing at the edge of the cliff, kind of peeking over, just interested in what could be, but I wasn't ready to actually make the jump. And then, boop, layoff happened, and I got that little push that I needed to take the leap. So I've been reflecting on just how far I've come over the past 2 years, and honestly, I'm really freaking proud of how I've grown professionally. Back in 2021, at the end of the year, I was working for Accenture. I truly had no idea how I was going to be able to leave and pursue my own thing. I felt like I just had very little marketable skills. I didn't know how to start a company. I didn't know how to develop a product. And I just felt so continually stuck in the consulting loop. Having no real skills, you keep getting praised and promoted and offered more money, which at the time I was 26 and that felt like amazing. And I just didn't know what my path out of consulting was going to be. And I was stubborn too, because I wanted my exit from consulting to be right into entrepreneurship. That was going to be my success story. I was so romanticizing this idea that I could leave consulting and build my own company. But just like my guest and friend, Justin, said on the podcast a few weeks back, it's perfectly okay to have a stepping stone position. And taking the chief of staff job at the startup was the best thing that I could have done for myself, really. Rather than staying stuck in the consulting world until some entrepreneurial option magically appeared. That was just getting ridiculous. It wasn't going to happen. And then after getting that hands-on experience at the startup, I had so many more tangible skills that I could actually take out on my own and start freelancing. So just reflecting on where I was even 2 years ago, I feel so much more confident in what I have to offer as an individual and that I am a highly valuable asset to startups now. And that's That's a great feeling, just thinking back to where I was and how trapped I felt in the golden handcuffs where I was being paid a lot, but I still had no skills that I really felt that I could take out and use on my own. So I'm just giving myself, a little pat on the back. Like, it's a good feeling to feel confident now and to know that I can make my own income without working for a company that tells me what I'm going to do and, how much I'm going to make. But the past 6 months definitely did not always feel or look like that. Back in October and November, I was literally waking up in the middle of the night, like a few times a week, just thinking about what I was going to do and exactly how much money I had in savings and how fast I was burning through it. It was like legitimately terrifying. I certainly didn't plan to buy a house and then get laid off a year and a half later. Like, that's some adult shit at stakes, But as the months passed and I started working with my first few consulting clients, I've learned a few things, and I would love to share them with you. I've realized that I am really well equipped to help other startups with their go-to-market challenges, and the imposter syndrome started fading away the more that I worked with clients, and I proved to myself that 1, I do know what I'm doing, and 2, I don't actually need to be employed by a company in order to get paid to do it. And that was a huge revelation. The second thing I've realized is just how important it is to show up and to make a name for yourself. In any of the time that I've been home over the past couple of months and not been in Arizona, I've been really focused on attending events, joining communities, and trying to meet founders. It's definitely, for me, just nicer to make a more personal connection with someone at an event, maybe over a casual conversation and a beer rather than a cold reach out note on LinkedIn. I know I'm going to have to do that eventually, but I don't know, it just feels icky and I prefer meeting people in person. I think you're able to convey so much more when you meet someone and they can see the excitement in your eyes and how knowledgeable you are in your field. It is harder to convey that online for sure. There's been a few things that I've been really enjoying and some things that I did not enjoy, mostly on my early journey to self-employment. So some of the things that I've been feeling really positive about are the ability to shift my mindset. Not every hour between 9 to 5 do I need to feel guilty if I'm not working. I can go to the gym at 10 a.m. and I can work at 8 p.m. if I want to. And it's not like I didn't have that flexibility in my last job. I did to some extent. But the fact that other people are working set hours and that you generally need to be responsive during working hours made it really hard for me to release that guilt. So, even if I took a workout class in the morning and then I came back and I finished my work at night, during the workout class, I would still be thinking about who might be pinging me on Slack and that I need to get back to them as soon as possible. And then I was never really present. I couldn't really take that time away for myself to focus on my health because I was just thinking about oh, what if my boss pings me during this time, So maybe it was technically physical flexibility, but it really wasn't mental flexibility, if you know what I mean. The second thing that I'm really enjoying is that I'm in charge of my income now. And as fucking scary as that is, it's also really freeing. I had a love-hate relationship with my salary. I think before I felt both lucky to be making what I did and also limited at the same time by how someone else was able to tell me what my time was worth. I recorded a lengthy episode about this called The Psychology of Your Salary, which I talked a lot more in depth about my attachment to money. So if that's something that you've been thinking about or that you're struggling with, I highly suggest that you go and you take a listen to that episode. In my opinion, it's pretty good. So for all of the positive things that self-employment has brought me, there are also some things that I really don't enjoy. And let's be honest about those. The biggest pain in my side was finding my own health insurance. That was annoying AF. I spent days trying to figure out the best option to basically just get to still be alive, but not pay thousands of dollars each month for health insurance. I wound up taking the Cobra extension that I was offered. If you don't know what Cobra is, basically like if you're employed by a company and then you get laid off, you have the ability to continue on the plan that you were on with that employer, but then you assume all of the premium payments. Whereas maybe in the past, your company was making part or all of the payment for you. Now the cost falls on you, but at least you can keep your same plan. And often this comes with a discount because your company was able to buy into this plan at a group rate rather than you as an individual. Now, I don't know what happens if you don't have that option from your previous employer. I feel like it can be really scary because when I was looking for my own independent health insurance, especially in New York State, what they do is they offer you a discount on your health insurance if you're making under a certain amount. But guess what? If you happen to make over that amount that you estimated, you're going to owe money at the end of the year. And I'm just not about having a gigantic, scary tax bill next year. So I was like, you know what? No, not worth it. So finding your own health insurance is definitely one of the least fun parts of becoming self-employed. And I had people sending me videos. My dad was sending me stuff about like other ways to get coverage, basically just so that you can continue to live. And in case you were to get hit by a bus, like you won't go bankrupt. But all of that just made me feel like a big, scary adult, and I really hated it. The second thing that I hated about big, scary adulthood was figuring out how to file my taxes on my own. And to be honest, it was something that I just didn't want to mess with my first year with having my own business. So I bit the bullet and I hired an accountant, and she is great. She was able to help me file my LLC for me too, which was a nice benefit that I didn't have to deal with that headache myself. I don't think it's a particularly difficult process. I think it just comes with some paperwork and some decisions that you have to make about like how you want your business to be structured as a tax entity. And for me, I just decided it was worth the money for me to have peace of mind that for the first year in business, everything was set up right. And who knows what happens in the future. Maybe I can figure out how to do my own taxes. Maybe I make enough money that I just continue to pay for an accountant. But either way, I wanted the peace of mind that everything was going to be taken care of and that I would have someone as a resource to ask questions to when I was like, what the fuck is going on? I don't know what this paperwork is. I don't know what these, tax implications are. What are these deductions? Stuff like that. The last thing that I don't necessarily enjoy, but am figuring out some ways to deal with, is budgeting on a flexible income. It's definitely a little bit harder than it was before with a stable income where you just knew every 2 weeks you were going to get paid a certain amount, especially if you have like clients that pay invoices late and you need to cover bills and such. However, I've always lived by the principle of just living below my means by like a lot. So for me, I feel like that's kind of like the backdoor way of making sure that I'm still under budget, because if I'm being honest, I'm really not good at budgeting. I just try to save more than I spend. Help, I don't know. I'm sure there are people that are way better at that. But I think if you're able to scale back your lifestyle a bit for when you're in the early stages of being self-employed, don't spend money that you don't have, and it can all work out. This is not so much a negative, but is a thing that I'm realizing that I have to get better at. And that is structuring my time. So now that I have free time to do basically any personal tasks that I need to do most hours of the day, those things can start to take up time that you're not necessarily budgeting. But if you feel like you have nothing else to do, then all of a sudden doing the laundry, doing the dishes, cleaning the house, taking out the garbage, those tasks and just like take much longer period of time when you're not focused on what your goals and your priorities are for your self-employment. So I've had to be a little bit more specific with blocking my time, setting myself like weekly goals, and tracking the tasks that you need to do every day. Because previously you would have had a boss bothering you to make sure that those things were done. And even if you were very self-accountable when you were fully employed, you still had those like weekly meetings where you were accountable to some action, some results. And the more that you can sit down and have a strategy session with yourself or maybe a friend, I think the better. So I've been trying to meet with some of my friends who are also newly self-employed to give ourselves that structure and a little bit more accountability, because I think that is one of the hardest things with staying on track when you are newly self-employed. So all in all, I'm feeling really positive about being self-employed, even though it was kind of an emotional roller coaster, more so back in the fall when it was newer and I was still trying to sort so many things out. Now it's feeling like there's so much potential and there's so much that I can do, and I set the direction for my life and for my career. And I find that to all be really exciting. If you're someone who's considering taking the leap from full-time employment to being self-employed, I totally encourage you to take action and go after it. Even if that's a stepping stone position to help you get where you want to go. I'm immensely grateful to past Amanda for taking some action by leaving consulting, even if it wasn't directly leaping into what I wanted to do forever. Who even knows what they want to do forever? But if that's you and you're stuck between where you are now and where you want to go, I'm happy to chat with you. I'm happy to share the things that I've learned and can help you think about what needs to go into your plan. There's not always a direct path between A to C. And sometimes taking a little detour at B can actually help you get a lot closer to where you want to go faster. Like if I had just gone to work for a startup faster, I probably would have been at point C faster than I did. But hindsight is 2020, and I'd be happy to help you talk through it. Okay, that's all for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have suggestions for topics that you'd like to hear about on a future episode, or maybe a particular career path that you'd like for me to explore with a guest, please drop me a suggestion on Instagram. You can send me a DM at Professional Life Crisis. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, a 5-star review would mean the world to me, and it really helps the podcast grow, and it helps more people like you find the show. Have a great week, and we'll talk soon.